Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Derek with a Chance of Podcast. I am here with my backed up friend Pepto Bismol. How you doing over there, Pepto?
Hello, I'm doing great. Drink me when your throat is sore and or you're sick. I'll be here all day.
All right. Well, we have a good show. We got some different things we're going to throw at you today. We took a little hiatus. We have been got off of our weekly schedule that we just came up with, and we couldn't even meet the first date. But we came back better than ever. We have some trivia, some games at the end, and some recommendations that we're going to throw in here and there. But today's topic is sequels better than the first. Now, these are movies that we feel that the second installment has performed as well and gone over and beyond the first. Now, we've chosen a few good ones. I have some that are apparently questionable, and some people might debate significantly worse than the first. But I'm going to tell you why all of you people are wrong and why I am in the 1% of people that know what they're talking about. And Chance, what kind of movies do you have for us?
I got some absolute classics. These past couple episodes, you've been dogging on me saying that my picks are childish and you're never going to see them on a top 10, top 20, top 50, top 100 list. Well, today the roles are a little reversed because my picks you will see on every single one of these lists. And I know one pick that you got for certain that nobody in this earth is going to agree with you.
That may be so, but I will say, you are right. One of your picks is definitely not a children's movie, but I will say one of your movies is a classic. So I will say that the roles may be a little bit reversed today, but I have some trivia to start off regarding our movies. If you can maybe kind of dip our toe in, just kind of introduce us to what movies these will be. And I'll start off with my first trivia question. Now, Chance, my first movie that we're going to talk about is Spider-Man 2. I feel that the second installment, Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi as director, absolutely amazing movie. I think it just really outdid the first. And my question to you as trivia is Scott Spiegel, who was a screenwriter, a friend of Sam Raimi's, he was the man standing on the balcony in the second movie who was trying to eat a slice of pizza when Peter Parker left the delivery up there. Now, my question is, Scott Spiegel was a screenwriter with Sam Raimi on what second installment of a film?
Well, I'm going to go with, I don't know if he was super he wasn't a super big deal when these movies came out. So I'm gonna just go out on a guess and say that this guy he's a ride or die, and I'm gonna guess the Evil Dead franchise.
You are absolutely correct. He was the screenwriter of the second Evil Dead, another franchise, which honestly I would debate that Evil Dead 2 is better than the first. Have you seen all those?
I would agree with you. Evil Dead 2 is fantastic.
I think the first one, honestly, I remember watching the first one and I was very underwhelmed by it. I love watching older ones like that just because, they don't age as well. They're a little bit cheesier. Not because, like, what's happening is cheesy, but just because the visual effects don't, withstand the test of time just because things get so realistic. But I did enjoy those. So that was my first question. I'm going to save my second one. You can go ahead and go with your trivia question. Apparently, you have 5.
Well, okay,
He spent 20 minutes.
Look, I was trying to get some good questions together, and I was rushed, so my questions are not going to be great. But look, I got
forever. I have 2 questions.
I have 3 questions prepared, and
you have 3 questions for no reason.
And we will jump into my first pick here with my first trivia question. My first pick for best sequel is a classic, absolute classic. I think everybody enjoys this movie. It's Magic Mike XXL.
I don't know which one you consider.
This is an absolute classic.
I think that one's not it.
Every movie I've picked today is an absolute classic, and it's honestly, if I walked into a museum and it said these are the top 3 movies of all time, I expect Magic Mike XXL to be in there. All right, I'm just putting that out there. But my trivia question for you is which character, if you can't name, the character's name, if you can name the actor, I'll give you that. But which character in this movie is in the WWE Hall of Fame?
And the reason he's saying that I don't have to know is because I've actually never seen the XXL movie. So from what I know that Matthew McConaughey is it, not WWE, so not gonna go with him. Channing Tatum.
Matthew McConaughey is actually not in this movie. He is not in.
He's not in the second one. Okay,
no.
So I don't even know that. I don't believe Channing Tatum's in WWE. The only other person I might think would be in it, who I I still don't think he is, Joe, who's actually in my movie Spider-Man 2, Joe Magelio. I don't know how you say his name.
I don't know how to say his last name either, but that is not correct.
That is not correct.
I don't think you don't really know a lot of WWE. I've been trying to get you into it, but you definitely. I knew for a fact you probably would not know this character. It's Kevin Nash. He plays Tarzan in the Magic Mike movies, and he was famously a part of NWO, the New World Order, with guys like Hulk Hogan, and
I do like Hulk Hogan
and a lot of other people.
Hulk Hogan is a part of my franchise.
Eric Bischoff.
One of my
he was kind of the WWE, WWF, kind of that era.
Speaking of WWE, I was watching Psych 2, the movie, last night, and it had a WWE star, and I thought it was one of your favorites. It was a woman. She was playing like one of the henchmen. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I haven't seen the movie.
It was like, I think her last name was Flair. I think they were calling her
Charlotte Flair.
Maybe. She kept getting up on a table and she was like beating up these guys, and she was like, "Look at my thighs," and then she would just body slam. Was that something she said?
If it was Flair, it was Charlotte Flair. That's Ric Flair's daughter.
Okay, I think that may have been who it is, because I seem to remember reading Flair on it. But anyways, if you're into WWE, she is in Psych 2.
Is that Lassie Come Home?
That is Lassie Come Home, yes. She was barely in it. It kept showing her like she was someone famous that everyone would know. But honestly, I kept looking at her. I was like, I have no idea who this is. Until it got to the final scene where she started doing WWE moves. And I was like, oh, I bet that's where she's from. So I ended up looking it up. And I think it said something Flair. I thought it said Kate Flair, though. But I could have just been reading it wrong. I'm not sure.
Could be. I mean, I know her. She may have a usually when you're like a daughter or a son, you just go by your real name. But she may have Charlotte Flair may be a stage name. I don't really know.
Could be. But my next question is regarding one of my movies, and this one is going to be the one that everyone disagrees with me on. I chose this movie. I kind of combined two movies here because no one considers these movies to be better than their first. In fact, the one that I've chosen, most people consider to be the worst sequel in history.
It is so bad, I don't even acknowledge it.
Says the guy that Surf Up and then Surf's Up Wave Mania comes.
No, Surf's Up Wave Mania is absolutely terrible, and I don't acknowledge that movie. I also don't acknowledge Pacific Rim 2 Uprising, and I also don't acknowledge this movie that you're about to say, okay? In this franchise, there are only 2 movies. This movie does not exist.
Okay. Before we say what the movie is, I'm gonna, only kind of give away. This is gonna be more for just the general audience, because you know what the hint is. So the first Pixar movie not to be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Animated Film.
Good reason it didn't get that nomination.
And so to put this in perspective, the award came out in 2001, and in over 10 years, Pixar had never made a movie that was not considered for Academy Award for Best Animated Film. So this was the first one to do it. It's honestly...
I should tell you why it should not be picked.
It's going off the beaten path. It likes to... what do you call him? A trailblazer? So, second for the audience to answer. Wait for it. And it is Cars 2. I believe that Cars 2 is way significantly better than the first movie. I do love the first movie, don't get me wrong, but I enjoyed the second movie so much. I had so much fun watching it, and I think it was a great movie. And so, although it didn't get nominated for Academy Award for Best Animated Film, awards are by people who are stupid, La La Land should have won over Moonlight. I could give you 1,000 examples. And Cars 2 should have won Best Picture that year. What can I say? But Anyways, that is the last trivia question that I have to introduce two of my movies. Chance, do you have another one?
I have, yes, my second movie. I got two, not really trivia questions, but more fun facts. My second movie is not a, it's a sequel, but it's one of those sequels that took a while to come out. There's an 11-year separation between these two movies.
Was it really that long?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Well, and it is this one is Puss in Boots: Last Wish. Absolutely fantastic film. My two kind of fun facts are this movie is an hour and 42 minutes long, making it the longest movie in the entire Shrek franchise. Which is really interesting, because I thought Shrek 2 or maybe Shrek 3 would have had that, but to give it to kind of like a spin-off movie, it's a little weird that it would get the longest, but it's also the most recent, so that kind of makes sense. Movies have gotten a lot longer recently.
People are gonna watch like you go from Magic Mike XXL to Puss in Boots, and they're gonna be like, "What's this guy's deal?" Because I'm like, they don't get you like I do.
I think it makes sense. I think both are fantastic movies, and that's what we're going off of. Best sequels: Magic Mike XXL and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish are both fantastic sequels, better than the original. But to my other kind of fun fact is, I think everyone knows this one if you've seen the movie or seen a little bit about it. But in the very beginning of the movie, when Puss in Boots is fighting the giant, there's a scene where the camera pans the crowd, and you can actually see the wolf in the crowd kind of watching him about to die, foreshadowing that the wolf has been there for all of his 9 lives. Very interesting, very interesting. Not a lot of
I did not know that, actually. I'm sure it's true, though. I mean, they do a good job like doing like little details in those movies. The only thing I thought was strange, I've had to like get used to this, because usually I'm not a huge fan of when movies switch artistic styles, and this was one movie to do it. It was like the animation was just different, and a lot of it is just because of advancements that they've made. But sometimes it strikes me as odd. I remember going from the first Into the Spider-Verse movie to across. Wait, no, is it across? Yeah, into
the cross. But the style didn't really change that much between those two. I don't think
they really dove into it in the second one, because that one, it gives like each universe its own artistic style, and in the first one it's like it commits to kind of that one and it stays with it. So sometimes I have to like get used to it when it jumps from one to the other. Puss in Boots was kind of like that too for me too. But I really liked the artistic choices they made. And of course, you have probably the one of the greatest bads of all time, which is kind of nuts, just because it's another rendition of death, which has been in countless movies.
Yeah, it's to kind of go to your point. I think a reason why the kind of switch in the animation works so well is because, like I said, it's got that 11-year difference, and also the first Puss in Boots movie just wasn't really good. So I think a lot of time between the two, and kind of the first one is kind of forgettable, and this one really stands on its own. It doesn't really, because I think a lot of sequels have a hard time telling their own story. Finding their own footing. And I think this one does a great job of, you don't have to, watch the first movie to understand this one. It's its own story with its own themes and a bunch of new characters. And Puss even himself, Puss even himself is a very different character in here. And Cars 2 is very different in the fact that it's the characters are so different, I think, from the first Cars movie and even Cars 3. That I can't agree that Cars 2 is a better sequel, mainly because I didn't really touch on this in any of my other movies, just because it's not that far up there. But Cars is probably in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I absolutely love the first Cars. I love the first Cars. And for you to say Cars 2 is better, for you to say Cars 2 is better is very hurtful to me. I'll put that out there. It is
better. And top 10. Now you're just being a little. Come on, it's not Cars.
Cars 1 is fantastic. 10.
I can name 10 movies right now, and you would agree with me that all 10 are better than Cars.
Maybe 9.
Is The Godfather better? Is The Godfather better?
No. Cars is way more relatable.
Relatable.
Yeah, and the characters are a lot more likable. Lightning McQueen is an extremely likable character.
It's a
lot more quotable too.
"You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding." It is not as quotable.
It is. Cars is way more quotable, dog.
Take the gun, leave the cannoli. Cannoli. Is it cannoli? I think it's
Cannoli?
Cannoli. No, The Godfather is probably more quotable. I say probably just because I can't think of anything from Cars.
So, man. I don't think so.
Anyways, moving on. We going into our first. Let's just go ahead and stick with Puss in Boots. We're actually a pretty good. We talked about it a good bit. What stands out in Cars 2? We talked about animation. I want to talk about actually the villain of Puss in Boots 2. So, if you don't know, it is Death, played by the Wolf. What makes this iteration of Death? We've seen countless movies like play Death over and over and over, having as different characters. What makes the Wolf different?
I think it's the Wolf works so well because he's so intimidating just right off the bat. We get introduced to him very early, and he's intimidating to a point where he scares Puss in Boots. Like, for a while, Puss in Boots is hiding. He doesn't want to go out there. He gives up this life because he's scared of death. He doesn't want to confront him. And I think just having that happen kind of so early on puts so much of a legitimate threat behind this villain. That he's so scary that the legendary Puss in Boots doesn't even want to see him. He gives up this life to hide from him in a way.
Yeah, I know that, and I think it's very suiting too that, like, in the like grim fairy tales, any type of fairy setting, the wolf is kind of like the big bad wolf, whatever you say. But what is it that's the Puss in Boots' kind of phrase? Oh, laughs in the face of death, isn't that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very good. It all tied together very well. But
and even to like what I was talking about when he's fighting the giant at the beginning of the movie, he's singing this. He's singing a song. Puss in Boots is your favorite fearless hero. Like, that's the song that he's singing while he's fighting this giant. And then for a majority of the movie, he's just so he succumbs to this fear that the wolf gives him, to the point where he's having panic attacks in the woods because he thinks he hears the wolf, he thinks he sees the wolf. And I think that's such a strong message and such a well-built character in this villain for how much little screen time he actually has to make such a big impact on our hero.
I mean, it really is. I think what this movie does real well is that it doesn't focus so much on one overarching villain. Like, a lot of movies get caught up in making it this guy versus this guy, good, this is good, this is evil. Instead, a lot of it is kind of the introspective Puss against himself, his own feelings with death. After a long-lived life, how is he gonna a life of people saying, he laughs in the face of death. Well, now he actually has to confront it. How does that make him feel? We see that throughout the movie. And although you have other people like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and you have
Jack Horner.
It's like, yes, they're villains, but really it's just kind of subplots.
Yeah.
And you don't really have to focus on, okay, Death is the main villain, Jack Horner is the main villain. You kind of have all this stuff going on, and it juggles it all very well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's kind of to what you said. It's very hard when we kind of see these ABC plots, and I think a lot of the times movies kind of lose their way, and they focus too much in certain areas. But I feel like this movie especially, like, every character was given just enough, screen time. And nobody felt like they overstayed their welcome, and every character, even to Goldilocks and Jack Horner, they had enough screen time where you got to know the character, but you never felt like they were overbearing or they were taking away from somebody else's story, like Puss in Boots and the Wolf and that kind of our A plot that's going on there.
Yeah. Overall, good movie. I would agree. I would say the second is far better than the first. If they do make a third, which I have no idea, you might know whether or not they're making a third. I'd be very excited to see it. I don't know if it would be better than the second, but I think it would be a very good movie, however they decide to. And another good thing that they do is that they don't have to lead up to a third. I love that they do that. They finish the second story, and they do have like that part where they're going to a friend, and you watch them go to far, far away.
Yeah, you get a little bit of a Shrek tease, and if they do come, if we're getting a new Shrek movie, hey, I'm all for it.
Yeah, they just don't like leave you up with like, hey, death is still lingering or
Yeah.
something. It's just like they cut it off. They give you kind of a little appetizer. I liked it. I liked how it ended. Speaking of how it ended, I would like to go ahead and talk about my first one, and we might as well just get it out of the way. Just go ahead and let me just kind of do my spiel here. You can agree or disagree, chime in whenever you want, but I'm going to stick behind it. And I would like to. I put two of these movies in because no one ever says that both of these are better than the first. One is Kung Fu Panda 2. And the other is Cars 2. I think they have a few similarities going to the first, but I really think that both of them are underappreciated as movies. First off, Cars 2 takes the focus away from Lightning McQueen and focuses towards Tow Mater. And it takes a wild movie about racing and just turns it into a spy thriller around the globe as Lightning McQueen is racing for the something. I don't even remember what he's racing for, but because I honestly haven't seen it in a long time. But it was so good. I laughed. There was a mystery, and I gotta say, having lemons wanting to rise up against other cars because they're jealous or zealous, they're zealots basically. I think it's hilarious. I think it's great, and I absolutely loved it. I thought everything about it was a great movie, and honestly, I think you've joined a bandwagon of people that say hate the film, because if you try, I want you to tell me things that you hate about it that are like specific. I don't want it to be general, like, oh, they lose this, they do this. I want it to be very, very specific of what you don't like about it. Secondly, Kung Fu Panda 2 does the same thing. Of course, it still focuses on Po. It doesn't like shift off of that, but it goes much more serious than the first, third, or fourth installment. The second one is the most serious, has the most serious tone. We learn more of Po's origin, and overall, I would say the second, although it has pretty much the lowest score overall of all four movies, I think it is by far the best. The action's the best. Comedy's hilarious. Maybe not as funny as the first, because I will say the first one is kind of a diamond, but I would say that the second one is much better. When it comes to overall storytelling, I think the second one is really good. But let me hear some critiques you have on this movie. Specific.
Okay, I'll give you specifics. First off, I want to say I do disagree with both of your picks. I want to say that I could be swayed. I could concede to Kung Fu Panda 2. I think the first is an absolute classic, and the second, I will agree, is underappreciated. But I will never, ever say Cars 2 is underappreciated. That movie is terrible. Because I think a lot of the reasons it's so bad, I'm going to be specific here, a lot of the reasons it's so bad is the reasons that you said it's good, which I find really funny. Okay? Cars 1 is a masterpiece because of how grounded it is, okay? It's a movie about a race car, Lightning McQueen, the greatest to ever do it, the greatest to ever do it, all right?
No.
How many piston cups does Lightning McQueen have? He's the greatest racer to ever live. Lightning McQueen is the greatest racer of all time. And to take that excellence, that prestige, those piston cup victories, and to put them in a spy thriller where he's the background character is disrespectful.
No, my God. I don't want to hear how great the first one and that makes the second one bad. Tell me why you think the second one is bad. That's why the second one is
bad. Because it spits in the face of the very first movie. Lightning McQueen is the greatest racer of all time. The greatest racer of all time. Okay. He has the most Piston Cup wins of all time.
So he gets to race against the world.
But you don't even know what the race is. You don't even know what the race is. You said the whole reason you love the second movie is because Tow Mater gets to fly around in an Apache helicopter or whatever he does, fighting international super spies. That's not what Cars is.
And it's a kid's movie, and it's hilarious, and I love it. And I still haven't heard anything you've said about the second one.
Just because it's a kids movie does not give it an excuse to be stupid.
You have not said anything specific. You've just said
I have been specific.
No. Say without the first, just the second. Only the second movie.
It's a sequel. You compare it to the first.
That's not true.
That is true. That is true. That is true.
Right, things that are great about Puss in Boots. The villain's great, storytelling, animation.
And it did everything better than the first movie. That's what this whole episode is about. Sequel's better than the first. Cars 2 is not better than the first movie.
But I want you to tell me something bad about the second one. And only about the second. Not that it has anything to do with the
Everything is bad about the second. Everything is bad about the second. I don't even remember the villain. It's got a forgettable villain. It has a forgettable storyline.
You know
Lightning McQueen is barely in it. Okay? It's what are we doing focusing on super spy cars?
I'm sorry. Is the movie called Lightning McQueen? No, it's called Cars.
Yeah, and who's the main character? Lightning McQueen. Who's the greatest racer of all time? Who has the most Piston Cup wins of all time? Lightning McQueen. You know who's not in that movie? Doc Hudson. Where's Doc Hudson?
Okay, that's because Paul Newman died.
Okay,
that has absolutely nothing to do with.
I want Doc Hudson. I want Doc Hudson, and I didn't get it. All right.
Honestly, give me a prequel with Doc Hudson.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. It'd be way better than Cars 2.
It
could be an hour and a half of a black screen to be better than Cars 2. You joking me? Come on. What are we doing here?
Okay. But Kung Fu Panda, you said you'd be lenient.
I would. All right, lay it on me. What reasons do you have for Kung Fu Panda to be better than first?
I want to compare a few things. First off, and I will give Kung Fu Panda props. As far as villains go, Tai Lung is far superior to the Peacock. I mean, I'm not going to debate that. I think that Tai Lung is, a great villain. They have a final epic showdown. The scene with him escaping the prison with all the rhinos is actually a really good scene. But I will say, cinematically, second one is better. Now, could be animation that's better. It's just the animation is better too. That's another thing. But I will just say the second one kind of knew what it was doing a little bit better, whether that's bigger budget, more time editing, whatever it may be, it was better. When it comes to storytelling, I also think that it is much better. It doesn't do, as you say, with the other ones of playing too much off the first one. Rather, it goes into his next step. First one is kind of realizing your self-worth and, him being the Dragon Warrior. Second one is him, inner peace. It's literally the theme of the whole movie. Not only himself, but his master Shifu's trying to find that inner peace. So first, realizing self-worth. Second movie, finding inner peace with who you are. And then I will say all four of the movies do a very good job of going like step to step of what's next. The third one I didn't care for. It didn't really have a step in there. Fourth one's about him passing on and being a spiritual leader. So I think all three have those three have really good steps. The third one I don't really care for. But back to the second one. Villain, great villain. He just doesn't compare as a great to Tai Lung. Other things that make it great. I mean, it is compelling. It has aspects that the first one doesn't, in that it has dramatic scenes that either you're caring deeply for the characters more so than the first, because of course the first is a more lighthearted comedy, which is what you want, but I think it makes the second one a better film because you can have more emotions and empathy for some of the characters, and I really think that makes it stand out as a lot of your choices for animation movies. That's kind of something that you seem to have as a common theme throughout the movies that you like.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. A lot of my favorite animated movies definitely I think have kind of what I was going back to, kind of harping on Cars 2, just because it's a kids film, animated film. That's not an excuse for it to be stupid or toned down. A lot of my favorite films are actually animated films, quote unquote kids films, that I think have a lot of adult themes in them. Stuff like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I think on our next episode, or maybe just one, I'm going to ban you from doing either what's considered child movies or animation.
They're
just
great.
to see if you can branch out.
I think that genre has produced some of the best movies of all time. And because I think there's so much you can do there. There's so much potential. And there's so many relatable stories to tell through these kind of adolescent characters. And just characters growing. And we have a chance to see them grow. We have a chance to see ourselves in those characters. And I think that's kind of what, when you're not afraid to deeply dive into these characters and allow us to see them grow and see them change, I think it just makes for a worse movie. And not having the confidence maybe in your writing or your director to explore those, is something that makes a movie fail for a lot of different reasons. And I think movies like Kung Fu Panda, movies like Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, a ton of movies like that are able to do that really well.
Yeah, I do think it's one of the best. I will stand by that it's better than the first, although the first is a classic. It has a lot of great aspects in it, but I really do enjoy both. As far as Cars 2, I think I'm okay with being in the niche, in the 1% of society that can truly
I think
appreciate a
it's less than
film.
the 1%. I think you're the only portion of the world
It's
that would
the
pick
me.
Cars 2. Yeah, it's the
It's
you
the
percent.
me. I will say I do think we should have an episode where you shouldn't be allowed to do like any kind of children's film, and I shouldn't be allowed to do any like action film, because
That's gonna be
I
a very
think most
difficult
of mine have
episode.
been like, yeah, we all have nothing to talk about. It'll be what you're talking about, just like a
I'll
black
have to
screen.
go out and just watch a whole bunch of movies and grab something.
But your next film, I would actually put this one on. I would put this on like a top 100 list. This one would be in probably my top.
I think many people
Definitely my
would.
top 50.
I think many
Maybe
people
top
would put
25.
it in a if not a top 25, a top 50. I think
Yeah,
this is not
sure.
only one of the best sequels of all time; it's one of the best movies of all time. And that pick for me is Blade Runner 2049. I'm a huge fan of the original Blade Runner, especially the extended cut. But I think this movie surpasses it in every single way. I think the visuals are better. I think the action's better. I think the writing's better. I think the story's better. I think the directing's better. I think the characters are more relatable. I think the sets are better. I think everything in this movie is better than the first. Maybe the only thing is I think it's harder to do the aesthetics. Maybe I think the aesthetics, the kind of the world, not world building, but just the look of the world may have been a bit better in the original. But I think everything else is done way better in 2049. And I if you watch the two back to back, you can definitely see a big difference, a big change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do really enjoy the world of, like you said, it's kind of established more in Blade Runner, but I like the way that it's visualized in the second one a lot more, just because it is probably what you would call a gold standard when it comes to cinematography.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 scenes that you'll see all the time. Whether, I mean, if you're someone that watches movies constantly, or like just talks about it, has it on your TikTok, you'll see it on TikTok, Instagram Reels all the time. You'll just see like those clips over and over and over, just because they're pretty breathtaking visually. I was gonna ask. I have one thing that I consider, honestly, I think the second one is better in every way. This is another one that I'll agree with you on, that, but there's one aspect that I think that the first one does. And I don't even know if you consider it an aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I'll consider it an aspect. Why not? That I think that the first one does much better in the second. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I would say, if I had to pick, I would probably say just maybe mystery, because I one of the biggest things about the first movie and I think if we want to talk a little bit about Inception, I think this is another thing that makes that movie so great, is even when the movie's done, you're still talking about it. You're still questioning it. And Inception is the top spinning. Is it real? And if it's real, does it matter? If it's fake, what's the difference? If it's real, should we even be questioning it to begin with? And then in Blade Runner, is Deckard a replicant? That's a question that's carried through for years and years and years. And if he is, does it matter? And I think that movie does a better job at making it does a better job at existing past a movie. Once the movie's over, you still have a lot to talk about. Is Deckard a replicant? Like I said, does it matter if he is? In 2049, I don't really think you get that. It has some mysteries, but everything's kind of swept up real tightly by the time the movie's over, and there's not really a lot of conversations to have after that.
Yeah, I do think a lot of the conversations stem more from what it achieves as a
Mm-hmm.
film rather than like the plot or the movie itself, like you're
Yeah.
talking about with Blade Runner. But your answer was much better than mine. It is actually not what I was referring to. I was referring to the monologue
Mm-hmm.
at the end by I don't even Batty, I think his name. Uh Gives the final
Yeah.
monologue in the rain, and it is probably one of the greatest monologues in all of film. And honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I watched the first Blade Runner, and I got so bored in like the first probably hour or
Mm.
so.
It's a slow burn.
But it is a slow burn, and I mean, it makes the mystery good, but that's why it's probably not as I do like movies that are slow burns, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, that one I just kind of felt myself kind of dozing off in. But at the end, in the rain, where he gives the monologue about death as his whole life being lost in time like tears in rain.
Mm-hmm.
What a banger
It
line.
is. It's
That
so
is
good.
fire. That is straight fire. That is such a good line. And honestly, the second one kind of loses it when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
script writing. I mean, like,
Yeah, I would say it doesn't have a lot of those hard hitting moments. I think the biggest one is when you find out that Kay is not Deckard's son.
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's when and to the and you know at the end where he's laying on the steps, kind of dying, knowing that. But I don't really think there's a whole lot of real moments where the writing shines. I think it's more the
yeah.
visuals and just the act, just the performance. I don't think
Yeah,
it's
I would
necessarily the
give
script.
writing. I would give writing to the first one and probably
Hmm.
visuals to the second one. It seems like the movie's trying to. It's probably how film is moved throughout like time. Like
Hmm.
earlier in the history of film, people say things because that's the easiest way to get across a message, a point. They'll use very deep metaphors like
Hmm.
this one, while in most movies nowadays, you have to kind of set a benchmark
Yeah.
cinematically if you want to say something. Movies like 2049, him dying on the steps, him where he's kind of all beaten and bloody in front of the hologram,
Hmm.
and then another movie like 1917 where he's
Hmm.
standing in front of the church and the
Yeah,
church is
I
burning.
love that scene.
That
It's
is
so
a
good.
1970 is probably my favorite war movie.
Mine
Having
too.
everything done in one shot,
Yeah.
it is. It's another thing like what I'm talking about. How movies are moving towards like you have to make a mark
Hmm.
cinematically if you want to make a movie good. Which I don't really like how like that's happening. I would rather. I don't know if I want to say more quantity, but it seems like nowadays you're getting fewer films with bigger budgets, and it's either a really big hit or miss,
Hmm.
as opposed to early 80s 90s where you'll have so many movies to choose from and you'll just have a few like a bunch of gems in there just kind of hidden that you have to find.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of stuff contributing to that issue. I think the biggest one is the studios.
Hmm.
Kind of going back to what you were saying, like when it comes to movies, in order to do something new, you have to do something different. So much stuff has been done already, that when you're pitching a new idea to a studio, it's like, you know, it's going to be safer just to do a sequel. It'll be safer to make
Yeah.
the 13th Marvel movie, the 27th Marvel movie. It'll be safer to reboot Cinderella, reboot an old Disney movie, reboot Lion King. It'll be safer to do something people already know, than it would be to take a risk on something new. Because, like I said, to be new is to be different. If you're not doing something differently, you're not standing out. And so much has been done already. What can you do that's different? I think is a question a lot of people are asking. And I think especially a problem with rom coms is every single rom com nowadays kind of feels the same because it's
Very
largely
formulaic.
it's largely
Yeah.
formulaic. It's the same stories, the same characters, in the same situations. None of them really feel different. If you watch 10, you've seen 20.
Yeah.
And I think that's an issue that's coming into a lot of other movies past that genre, and just everything feels kind of maybe not oversaturated, but a lot of things feel very samey now.
Hmm. I feel like it's just like it's the same thing like you're saying. Studios just won't greenlight anything that they
Hmm.
don't know for sure like will work.
Yeah.
And you don't have any more movies like When Harry Met Sally, or
You've Got Mail.
You've Got Mail.
I love that movie.
That's a good one. I watched that for the first time like a year ago, and it was very good. It was not at all what I thought it was going to be about, but again, very good movie. My next movie that I want to talk about, I think this belongs on a top 100 list, and most 90% of people won't put it in a top 100 list, but it is again, I would put it in my top 5 sports movies of all time. It is about, or it's Rocky. It's Rocky 2. I think Rocky 2 is much better than the first. Most people will say that the fourth is the best, which is not a bad choice at all. It is the kind of famous, the movie that won us the Cold War. It beat communism all by itself, and Sylvester Stallone is the reason that we have to thank. But I think the second is much better than the first, and better than the fourth. I think the second one is probably one of the best in the franchises. The reason for that being, first off, have you seen the Rocky?
Mm-hmm.
Any of the Rockies?
Yeah, you've watched Creed. I've seen everything. I've seen Rockies. I've seen Creed.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
I think, controversial pick, I think Creed's better than Rocky.
Okay, first off, before we get in, which one do you think is the best out of all the Rockies?
Probably, I would say Rocky 2, actually. I think I agree with you.
Rocky 2, okay. Here we go. We're finally on the same page about one of my movies. And I definitely think they're better than Creed. But I have not seen Creed 3, so is that one better than any of the first 2 Creeds?
I think no. But no. I think Creed 3 has one of the best fight scenes of all time.
But that's what happens when you take out Rocky from his own franchise.
It is fantastic. Like that, there's the fight scene towards the end of the movie is absolutely stunning. But I think narrative wise, it gets beat by I think Creed 1. I think Creed 1's fantastic.
Well, you don't go to Rocky movies for the fight scenes. You go for them for the training montages. Mm-hmm. That's the real thing that matters. But I will say the reason I consider the second Rocky to be better than the first is, first, all-time classic. You get to meet Rocky Balboa, find out why he's so lovable, and we meet a guy who is not necessarily down on his luck. He's just kind of from a neighborhood, living a lifestyle that's just getting by. He picks up fights, and he'll lose the fight just to get a couple bucks, and lives in kind of a place that's not so great. He has a thing for someone that works at a pet store, Adrian, and he gets a once in a lifetime offer to fight Apollo Creed, who at the time is the world champion. And first movie goes on, he ends up losing to Apollo Creed, but he goes the distance. He goes all 15, I think it's 15 rounds, and he proves to himself that he's not just another bum from the streets. He won, Sylvester Stallone's first film that he directed and wrote himself and wanted to star in. No one thought it would be the success that it was, and ended up launching this franchise that now has 9 movies. And honestly, Sylvester Stallone's career as a whole. But the second one, we come up to Rocky after he has found this new type of fame. He's ran into all this money, and he starts blowing it left and right. And honestly, he blows through all of his money, and he ends up right back where he was in the first. He's having to get a job in a meat packing factory, but he doesn't want to fight anymore. He's done with that part of his life. He's proven himself in that way, and after losing all of his money, he thinks he should go back to fighting. And of course, Adrian, now that she's with him, doesn't want him to fight, doesn't want him to get hurt. And because she doesn't believe in him, he starts to have that same kind of self-doubt. It is honestly what I would consider the next step in Rocky's arc. As you would say, same thing we talked about, Poe. The first movie was him realizing that he's not just another bum from the streets, that there's something in him that's, worth something. And the second one is about him ultimately believing in himself and overcoming self-doubt. And believing that although he was so close to what would be the world title, the world heavyweight championship, world heavyweight title, I guess is what you're supposed to say. But anyways, Adrian doesn't believe in him. As movie goes on, he starts to believe in him. I think the way the movie goes, okay, he's a bum, he's working the thing, he learns he has to fight again, and then Adrian becomes ill, she's having a baby, and she goes into a coma, and he's not going to fight. He is not going to do it, because Adrian's down and out. Once she wakes up, she realizes that she doesn't want to be what's in between him and who he really is, which is a fighter, and she ends up, believing in him. He believes in himself. He overcome the odds and defeats Apollo Creed in one of the best movies I've ever seen. And I love those films to death, and that is why I believe the second is far better than the first.
I like it. I agree. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think it's a great build-up. I think it is a phenomenal sports movie. I don't know if it's the best boxing movie of all time. I'd probably give that one.
Southpaw?
I give it to Real Steel, man. Real Steel all day long. I think that is not only a great boxing movie. I think it's one of the best movies of all time. Easily top 5 for me.
You've said top 5 about every movie we've ever talked about on this show.
Well,
your top 5 has 20 movies in it.
I don't think that's an issue.
Honestly, I think Rocky is a movie that, it's so interesting how it gets better as it goes, 1 through 4. I mean, honestly, I love the third one, even though it's a little goofier with Clubber Lang.
It's a movie that's very difficult to not like. Just the whole story behind it. It's very much both in the movie and outside the movie. It's very much an underdog story. And it's hard to hate on those. Even if you don't like boxing movies, even if you don't like sports movies, I think you'll find something to love here because you want to root for Rocky. You want to root for Rocky, and you want to root for Sylvester Stallone. I mean, if you know the story behind how this movie got made, I mean, it's seeing people succeed is inspiring. So
and the story goes he was starving, and so he had to sell his dog so that he could, buy food.
Yeah.
And then after he sold the right, or he didn't sell the rights to Rocky, he made Rocky. And then, huge success. He went back to buy the same dog, which is the dog that you see in the first movie. I think he calls him Bupkis. Bupkis? I don't even know how he says it because he has a bad accent. But he buys that dog back, and the guy that he sold it to kind of knew about his success. I think he charged him $14,000 or something, some ridiculous amount, or maybe it was just $4,000. Anyway, some ridiculous amount for the dog. Sylvester Stallone paid it without hesitation. He was best $4,000 I've ever spent. It's like that. I mean, he's really just like Rocky in real life, which is hilarious.
It's such an inspiring story, and it's very difficult to know that and not like the movie.
Yeah. Do you have one more movie? I forgot how many.
I'm all out. I got Magic Mike XXL, Puss in Boots, and Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. Did I have one more? Spider-Man.
We didn't really dive into Spider-Man or Magic Mike. If you wanna hit those on now.
Yeah. Let's just compare them side by side. They're basically the same movie.
They're very similar. Very similar.
The Spider-Man 2 is, I think, unbelievably better than the first. The steps that it made in visuals, first off, the first one by itself proved that superhero movies could be made and could be more than just cheesy films. Every kind of superhero movie before that was honestly a joke. You go back and watch it and you'll laugh. The only thing close that made superhero movies look not silly was probably the Batman movies, and
even then you had Batman and Robin.
Yeah, see, those more lean into the and bat nipples on the suit. Those lean more into comic.
Yeah,
they're not silly, but they lean into the comic.
Back then, there wasn't really such a thing as an action superhero movie. It was comedy.
Exactly. And even at that point in time, what were there already 5 Batmans?
Yeah.
Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, Adam West. I'm trying to think it was before 2000. Maybe that's just 3. I'm probably missing one. Val Kilmer. Oh, George Clooney.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are four Batmans just at that time alone, which is kind of nuts to think about. But it really opened doors and superhero paved the way for Marvel as a whole. Tobey Maguire, probably the GOAT when it comes to Spider-Man. Like, you may have a new favorite, but Tobey Maguire is and always will. Like, when you see him, he is Spider-Man. He will always be Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield has other movies that you'll know him for. Of course, they're all three Spider-Man, but Tobey Maguire is the OG. So I think he definitely holds a special place in a lot of people's minds. And the second one's just better overall. I don't even think I have to defend it, really. I'm not going to go into any kind of detail like I did with the others, just because I think it's kind of well known.
It doesn't need to be defended. It really stands on its own. And I think everybody knows that it's the best out of the three.
Which is kind of crazy, because the first one is amazing, too. Yeah. It's just the second one is so good. But I mean, we can just go straight into Magic Mike, because I have nothing more to say about it. It's just better.
Yeah, I completely agree. There isn't more much to say. I mean, it's one of those. If you look at the other Spider-Man movies, and you may disagree on this, but I think the other Spider-Man movies, they start off so strong, and they kind of dip after that. I think especially that with the Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, to the point where he didn't even get to finish the trilogy. And now you may disagree on Tom Holland's Spider-Man and the MCU Spider-Man, but I think Homecoming is my favorite Spider-Man movie. But I'm not a fan of Far From Home. I'm not a fan of No Way Home, even though it does have that kind of nostalgia with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. But Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man, it's probably my second favorite Spider-Man movie. But Amazing Spider-Man 2 is just not good. But then you look at Tobey
honestly,
Maguire's
Andrew
movie,
Garfield, probably my favorite Spider-Man.
Yeah, you look at Tobey Maguire's movie and just the quality in Spider-Man 1 and 2. Now, 3 is kind of a different story, but the quality in 1 and 2 is incredible. Where in other Spider-Man movies, that quality kind of dips over time. Tobey was able to, at least hang on to it for 2 movies, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I'll agree. Tom Holland's did. Honestly, I just don't think any of his are great. I would not. Put
I really like Homecoming, but
I'll put him, of course, above Amazing Spider-Man 2. But honestly, I wouldn't put him above, and of course Spider-Man 3. But we don't talk about it.
The reason I like Homecoming so much is that I think, to me, that's who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man is your friendly neighborhood superhero, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's what he is in Homecoming. I love Spider-Man origin stories, and I know Homecoming isn't really an origin story because I kind of skip over that, but I love watching him just be a small-time superhero. I don't think Spider-Man should be in space fighting Thanos, and we'll maybe get into that at a later date, but Spider-Man is your neighborhood's Spider-Man. That's who he is, and that's who he is in Homecoming.
It's funny. I think the things that I love most about each of the Spider-Man is what makes them most comic accurate. So about Tobey Maguire, my favorite is, honestly, his origin story in the first movie. Love how they tell it. It is the original how they tell it, and it is great. And the second one and third one, or in Andrew's and Tom's, they do it differently, and it plays out differently, and you're just kind of like, eh. The Andrew Garfield, what I love most about him is he is in suit most comic accurate. He's the most witty. He's funny. He is what Spider-Man is supposed to be in the suit. Outside Peter Parker, he's not.
He's too cool to be Peter Parker.
He is so freaking cool. He is so freaking cool.
Riding a skateboard at school? It's not Peter Parker. You can't do that.
Exactly. So I'll say in suit, he's probably most comic accurate, which I do love. And then Tom's, he is the neighborhood Spider-Man, which makes him better. And then, of course, they throw all that away in the second one as he starts fighting. Yeah, that's Tom is he's my least favorite of all of them. I'll go ahead and say it. But I think if you're truly, if you're not just a Marvel fan, and if you're a true Spider-Man, I think Tom should be at the bottom of the totem pole. Just my opinion. I think if they continue to do more movies, I think it'll get better. But anyways, overall, I just don't think the Tom Holland hold up. I kind of forgot where we were going with that one. I think we're supposed to do Magic Mike next.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about Magic Mike, honestly. I think the reason that it's so much better is because of how just genuine and I don't want to say real, but I will. Genuine and real of a movie it is. Like,
I don't want to say it, but I'm going to.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no other way to describe it. If you've seen it, it takes a big departure from the first movie, where the first movie kind of mainly just focuses on Channing Tatum's character and being brought in to the world of stripping, and with Matthew McConaughey and Adam, and he brings in Adam's character and it kind of teaches him, and we see this dynamic here. The second one kind of throws all that out a window. Matthew McConaughey and Adam, neither of them are in the movie, who played a big role in the first one, and it's more just focused on this team as a whole. They're going on a trip, kind of all around the world performing, and we get to see each and every character in a new light, and each of them is so likable and so deep, and each character is so interesting. And the more the movie goes on, the more we see and the more new characters we meet. Donald Glover is in this movie.
Is he actually?
He is. I mean, he's not a stripper. Like, they're going to this big event with a ton of different acts, and we see Donald Glover. He's like very in character for Donald Glover. His act is like he like makes up raps for people. And it's very interesting just to see these characters in a new light and see their interactions, and kind of to what you were saying earlier, where writing just goes a long way. I think the writing in this movie is so good. Every conversation feels real and natural, and when you see a character being real, it makes them very likable. I think the biggest immersion breaker for me when I'm watching a movie is just when characters don't feel real, when they don't make real decisions, when they're talking in a way that doesn't feel natural. And I think this movie doesn't have any of that. I think everything in this movie is done perfectly, and it feels very natural and it feels very real. Like, again, I don't want to use that word, but I'm gonna, because there's no other way to describe it.
Have you seen the trailer for his Childish Gambino's new movie, Brando Stone?
I have not, but I've been listening to Lithonia on repeat since it came out.
You need to watch the trailer, because apparently I have heard, pray tell, no, not pray tell, because you don't know it, that after this movie comes out, it's like kind of a commentary, what he's kind of been into, and then he releases this new album. He's going to drop the name Childish Gambino. And
I heard that as well. And go by Donald Glover. I don't know if that's just.
Watch the movie. I think if you watch the trailer, I think you'll understand, because it's kind of like it follows line of a singer who solidified himself and then wakes up in like a different future. I don't know. You just watch the trailer. I think it makes a little bit more sense once you see it.
Yeah, I know this is like way off topic, but I think Donald Glover will go down as one of the best, just minds ever. Just everything. If you look at Aristotle, if you look at everything he's done, I mean, and he's absolutely dominated the television series with shows like Atlanta. He's a fantastic director, directing his own music videos. He's a fantastic writer. He's a fantastic lyricist with all of his Childish Gambino projects. Everything he does is gold.
He is underrated. Mm-hmm. I think for that reason, I mean, he won't go down as like a one of the greats, but he should be. He is very talented. I won't give him that. Chance, now that we're kind of finished up with most of our bigger topics, I do have a game for you.
Lay it on.
It is, and of course, having to do with the topic. Does the sequel have a better Rotten Tomatoes score? So here I have a list of, I believe it is 8. I didn't count. It's like 15 movies of. I will give you the franchise, and you will have to tell me whether the first movie or the second movie has a better Rotten Tomatoes score.
I got a good feeling about this one. I think I have a pretty good radar for stuff like this.
Well, how many do you think you'll like? Anyway, I'll count. How many do you think you'll get, just a percentage wise?
I think I'll get a smooth 80. I'm confident. I'm humble enough to say that I will get 100%, no doubt. But I'm gonna give myself a little bit of leeway, and I'm gonna say 80.
That's a lot of leeway. That's 20%.
Yeah,
that's a fifth.
I'll do 100. I don't care. I'll get them all right.
Okay, there are 14 of these, by the way. I just counted.
That's an easy 100 right there.
Okay,
to say 16,
and I will say,
I missed 2.
Okay, well I disagree with probably half of these. So I picked some difficult ones. They start very easy and then they'll kind of progress onwards. So let's just start with the first one here. Wonder Woman.
Wonder
So
Woman.
the first one being Wonder Woman, second one being
okay? What's our baseline here? Do you want me to always say the first one's lower or higher?
I can't give you baseline because if I give you baseline, some of them will be really easy to pick out. Okay. So you just have to say better or worse.
The sequel?
And if you want to give a guess, all right, say which one. I'm
trying to get the rules here now. The first one's better. Wonder Woman 1984, I think
does it have a better Rotten Tomato score?
1984, the sequel?
Which one has a better Rotten Tomato score?
The first movie, Wonder Woman, has a better Rotten Tomato score.
Wonder Woman. Okay. Do you want to take a guess at what either of the Rotten Tomato scores are?
Wonder Woman, I'm going to say 80. 1984, I'm going to say 65.
You were very close on the second one. So it is a 93 on the first Wonder Woman.
Honestly, I'm not surprised. I did like that movie. I would be around the 80s, but I'm not surprised by a 90.
And then the second Wonder Woman is a 58.
Not surprising.
All right. Second one. This is actually pretty difficult. Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. It's been a long time
since
I've seen the Percy Jackson movies, but I'm going to say...
Second one is Sea of Monsters. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
First one's The Lightning Thief. I think that's pretty obvious, but I'm going to go the first one's better. First one has a higher score.
You want to take a guess at just take a guess at the first score?
70.
Or which one do you think is the highest?
I think the first one's the highest. I think it's a 70.
A 70. Okay. The first movie is a 49.
Interesting.
The second is a 42. So you are correct. You are 2 for 2 at the moment.
I'm going to be 15 for 15.
Now, next one, we have... Both of these movies are pretty much classics. I think the second one will be considered a classic. The Top Gun.
Top Gun Maverick is better. I'm going to say 95. Top Gun, I'm going to say 80.
You're going to say Top Gun is an 80.
I'm going to say Top Gun is an 80. Top Gun Maverick is a 95.
Top Gun Maverick is a 96. And Top Gun is a 57.
That hurts.
That's crazy.
That is
Never
pretty crazy.
In my mind would I think that they would have given a 57. I thought it would have just, it's a classic. I thought it would have been higher up. But no, it is a 57.
Top Gun Maverick is incredible, though. I mentioned to you this before we started recording, but it almost made my list.
Okay, this is where it starts to get... I don't know. The next two are still somewhat easier. But they get a little bit more difficult. All right. This one, you have to do the first 3 movies. Easy. Put them in order.
Easy.
The Hangover. 1, 2, and 3.
I'm going to say Hangover. The first one is with... The first one's got Mike Tyson, right? I'm going to say the first one's the best. I know I haven't seen all of these, so if I get something wrong, if I get it wrong, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. But I'm going to say the first one's the best. I'm going to say, it's not... I don't think it has the pieces there to be a classic, so I'm going to say 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think... I'm just going to throw out a guess here. I think it's the first, third, and then second.
This is the first one you have been incorrect on. Now, it goes first, a 79. Second, it goes a 34. And the third goes 20. The third one was terrible. Which one did you not see? Did you not see the second or third?
I've only seen the first one.
The second and third are atrocious. I love the first one.
I still got it right though because I put the first one first. I said the first.
You did. So we'll give you it. We'll give it to you because you still have to get 100%. So you are 1, 2, 3. You are 4 for 4 at the moment. Now, the next one may be a little bit more difficult. If I don't know, we'll see. Star Wars: A Phantom Menace and Star Wars 2: Attack of the Clones.
Phantom Menace is better. No, Attack of the Clones is better than Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace is boring. I'm going to say Attack of the Clones.
You're going to watch that lightsaber fight at the end, and you're going to tell me that's boring?
The rest of the movie is boring. That fight scene is incredible, but the rest of the movie.
You tell me you don't like watching. You don't like watching International Trade Federation law just going back and forth.
That movie is so boring. Attack of the Clones. I'm going to say it's a 68. I'm going to say it's a 68. And Phantom Menace, I'm going to say is a 40, 45.
You were so close. The second one is a 65. The first one is a 52. So you are correct on that one as well. This one, I'm hoping you've seen both of these. I'm assuming you probably have. The Hitman's Bodyguard and the Hitman's Bodyguard's Wife.
I haven't seen either.
You haven't seen either.
But I have seen the trailers. I have seen the trailers, and I think it's enough to go off of. Hitman's Bodyguard is better than Hitman's Bodyguard's Wife. I'm gonna say I'm saying 75, and I'm saying 60.
I will say if I were to do this, I would put them both dead even because I do enjoy both of them. I think they're actually kind of funny, and I like them. The first one is a 44. The second one is a 26. So yeah, it does go down substantially.
I have too much faith in these movies.
Now
with
this
Ryan
one,
Reynolds and was it The Rock? Is
Samuel
it The Rock?
It's Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, they look just alike. Don't worry about it.
They are very similar.
Okay, this one. These are two movies that you know very, very well, but I don't know if you'll know like the exact Rotten Tomato scores. So, first movie, Into the Spider-Verse. Second, Across the Spider-Verse.
I believe Across the Spider-Verse is higher. I think it's at like a 98. And Into the Spider-Verse is like a 94.
Okay. This will be the first one that you've gotten wrong.
That's whack.
Into the Spider-Verse is a 97, and Across the Spider-Verse is a 95.
That's whack.
So
it's been a while since these movies came out. Somebody must have went in there and review bombed it right before we recorded this episode.
Yeah, probably right before we recorded.
Yeah, Across the Spider-Verse, as far as last time I checked, had a higher score.
Well, now you're wrong. I checked last week. So this one, a little bit more niche. I'm sure you've seen both of them. Santa Claus and Santa Claus 2.
Oh, I love the Santa Claus. It's a classic. I'm gonna
Top
say
5 movie of all time.
I would say Santa Claus 2 is higher because it has Jack Frost. I don't believe the first one has Jack Frost. And for that reason, I'm pumping it up on the tier list. I'm gonna say Santa Claus 2, 50 even. Santa Claus 1 is a 30.
You've gone back to back wrong answers.
I'm getting cheated.
Santa Claus 1, 73. Santa Claus 2, a 56.
I'm getting cheated here.
You're giving bad answers.
That's okay.
I can't help you.
That's okay. Come back.
This one's a nail biter. Let me tell you. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Ooh, I'm gonna say Chamber of Secrets is higher, and okay. I'm gonna say it's a 70.
I will say I was surprised by this one because I absolutely love the Philosopher's Stone. I think it is so good, but the Philosopher's Stone has an 81, and the Chamber of Secrets has an 82. It is 1 point difference, and I am actually very disappointed by the answer because I really do like the first one. The next movie, again, this is another three-peater, so you'll have 3 movies, and you'll have to put all 3 of them in order.
Easy.
The Chronicles of Narnia.
Ooh.
So it starts with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Mm-hmm. Second one is Prince Caspian.
Mm-hmm.
Third one is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I had to think about it for a second.
I remember watching The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe a lot. And I remember really liking it. And I think when it comes to these movies, I'm the everyman. I think everybody watching this would agree with me. Real Steel, Surf's Up, Puss in Boots, Cars 1. These are some of the greatest movies of all time. So I think I speak for everybody when I say Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe is number 1. I'm gonna say it's an 80, and then I think it goes in that exact order. I think it goes Prince Caspian, and then it goes 3.
I am surprised you got this one correct. It is 1, 2, 3. I think the Dawn Treader, the third one, is much better than the second. But
interesting,
probably because they lose some of the main characters. Who knows? Next one, we're gonna do a little bit more of a speed round. Wreck-It Ralph.
So I know what this one is actually, or I know what it was as of a year ago, and I am in the minority here. And I know that the general audience, as far as I remember, likes Ralph Breaks the Internet more. So I'm gonna say, even though I disagree, Ralph Breaks the Internet is ranked higher than Wreck-It Ralph.
You and me are right on the same page because I like the first one better, but you are correct. The Rotten Tomatoes scores for Wreck-It Ralph is higher, 88 to 87, 1%. But I will agree, the first one is way better. I hate breaking the internet. Next up, The Godfather 1 and 2.
I have some outside knowledge on this one because I was just telling him I just watched The Offer on Paramount Plus. Fantastic show. You should go check it out if you haven't already. But that is about the making of the Godfather movie. And
is that really what it is?
That's what about it is. It's about the making of the Godfather, and it's a fantastic watch. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. But at the end, it talks about the movies, and the second one is better than the first. And that's my final answer. And I'm going to say Rotten Tomatoes score. I'm going to say they're both probably high 90s. I'm going to say 99 and 98.
You are correct. They're both high 90s, and there is a 1%. It's 97 and 96, but the first one is better than the second, according to Rotten Tomatoes.
Not according to the show.
Not according to the show, is right. Okay, last two. I'll say these. It's so hard. Anyways, Spider-Man 1 and 2. Tobey Maguire.
I mean, we just talked about it. Spider-Man 2 is better, but I'm gonna say in terms of Rotten Tomatoes score, I'm gonna say Spider-Man 2. It's highly regarded as one of the best superhero movies of all time, so it's got to have a high score. I'm gonna say 93. I'm gonna say Spider-Man 1 is a 88.
I thought you were about to guess both of them. Spider-Man 2 is a 93. That is the first one that you've gotten on the dot as far as score. The first movie is a 90, so it does go down. So you got that one correct as well. Okay, last one. Toy Story. Again, you have to do 1, 2, and 3. I haven't seen the fourth, so I'm not including it. 1, 2, 3.
I really like Toy Story 2. Probably top 5 movies of all time. I am going to say that is the best one. I'm going to say Toy Story 2 is the best one. Then I'm going to say Toy Story 1, then Toy Story 3.
And how close are these?
I'm going to say a couple points. I'm going to probably say Toy Story 2, high 90s, maybe 95. Toy Story 1, 92. Toy Story 3, I'm going to say 85.
Well, Chance, I'm going to say you have missed this one. And it is not entirely your fault. The first movie has a score of a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It is absolutely groundbreaking in animation, but Toy Story 2 is better.
Well, you might agree because Toy Story 2 also has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. They are both tied at 100%. And the third movie, the lowest on Rotten Tomatoes, a 98%.
That's actually... I don't think it deserves that. I think Toy Story 3 is good. I don't think it's 98. I think it's high 80s, low 90s. But Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 1 is absolutely groundbreaking, like I said. Set the benchmark for animation. Toy Story 2 is just incredible, start to finish. I think it deserves that number 1 spot.
Well, we'll never know which is better because it only goes up to 100.
I'm gonna go leave a review right now and take it down to 99.
They go put it like a 0-star review. That is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Toy Story 2 better. Sorry.
Well, I think that is all we have for this week. As far as any recommendations, do you have anything for our cinephiles?
Like I was talking about earlier, go check out The Offer on Paramount. If you haven't seen it already, it's absolutely incredible. Got Miles Teller in the main role. Great supporting cast. Other than that, I would say... Season 3 of The Bear just came out. I haven't been able to watch it yet. And The Boys is going on right now. Check those 3 out.
Also watching that. Very good. Yeah, if I had to recommend anything, I'm also going through Psych. If you want an oldie that's not necessarily new.
We're both doing a Psych rewatch right now.
I love Psych. Yeah, actually, I forgot you were watching it too. Yeah, Psych. And we didn't even plan that. We kind of just both started watching it. But it's very good. I just made my way watching through the 3 movies that came after the show. Also good. Can't wait for other shows like Community to get their movie.
They're
working on it. So anyways, that is all we have for today. Me and Pepto are headed out, and we will see you guys next time.
Join us next week.